Thanks for joining. As Jess has said, today we're going to be discussing your LinkedIn profile and how to get headhunted. We've got 6 steps in which we deem most important in how you can attract recruiters. I'm going to kick things off with option 1. Option 1 is your skills. Now, how many of you even know your LinkedIn page has a skills section to it? Hopefully the majority of you, but how often do you update it? For me, the skills section is really important. What I find with a lot of people is they make their LinkedIn page and then they don't update it at all. And if they do, then they just tend to focus on the job titles and the responsibilities. Your skills change. You're involved in new projects, you get new responsibilities, you get new promotions. As recruiters, we do look for skills, and it might be that if you do or don't have a skill on your profile, it can be the result of whether the recruiter actually messages you or not. So definitely update it. My personal advice is to update it every time you go onto a new project, you get a new role, or you get a promotion. It's not the sort of thing you're going to be updating on a weekly basis, but pay attention to your LinkedIn page.
Yeah, definitely. I think skills are so important. Like keyword searching is really important for any hiring manager or any recruiter now. So yeah, it's important to have those skills in there. But not only your skills, but also add your experience that's relevant to the role. Give more than just your job title, because there is so much more to what we do day to day, and every role is different. Now, look, we don't need to know what you've had for lunch every day for the past 3 years, but adding some thorough detail of your day-to-day will help your profile stand out above others. But start with the most important things of your job too. There's, depending on how senior you are, there might be bullet points that you can put into this. Keep it concise, but start with your important parts of your job too. Like not only will that help your profile stand out about others, but by doing so, your profile then becomes more searchable with the keywords. So it can really help you become more noticed by having more detail in your experience in the experience section. Be honest with your experience too, and what you've done. Interviews will always reveal the truth. And, with some processes from a more technical standpoint, tech tests, exercises, don't catch yourself out, but give enough in there to make you be noticed by any hiring manager or recruiter, or just simply to be connected with other people in your community as well.
I think you've got a little visual, haven't we, to show a good example?
Visual 2 will show you a good example of what sort of experience to put in there, and how to bullet point it. Keeping it bullet pointed makes it easy to read, easy on the eye for a lot of people. Nobody wants to read a novel on a LinkedIn profile. Often when it is chunky, lots of things get missed and there might be important information. So yeah, bullet pointing it makes it easy to read. You can also put your skills at the bottom of it as well to make them more noticed. So yeah, hopefully this visual gives a little bit more of an example of how you might be able to display your experience on your profile. Thanks for that.
In slight contrast to that, if we can show visual 1, something else that is really useful is if you are in a very niche industry, for example, SAP Commerce or Hybris. Hopefully some of you guys are in digital commerce tech that are watching, given that's the industry Simply Commerce operates in. Then you don't necessarily need to have a huge amount of information in there, because it's pretty clear that what you're doing on a daily basis is with that specific technology. Now, that only applies when you're being in super niche. If, for example, your job title is just software engineer, that doesn't help anyone at all. And that's possibly why you're going to be getting messages left, right, and center about PHP roles, about Java roles, about Scala or .NET or whatever it might be. So always try and be as clear and concise as possible. The more information you give the people that look at your page, the more specific the emails and target approaches from recruiters should be.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on to the third point. Now, this is one that hopefully everyone is also aware of, and that is open to work. As recruiters, those that pay extortionate amount of money to LinkedIn, but that's a different conversation, can see who switches the button for open to work. Now, I mean, it kind of says what it does on the tin. as you can see from Visual 3, we can see the job titles that you want, the job types you would prefer, locations that work for you, your availability, and any workplace types, whether it be remote, etc. Now, we do look at this, and the more you put on here, the better, the more it helps us. The majority of people, unfortunately, don't fill this out and they just leave it blank, or they just put something like full-time developer remote. Again, that doesn't really help much. So the more information you can put on here, the better. But most importantly, just click the button. If clicking the button, it shows us that you want to have a conversation. We can get in touch fast, and then we can set up that conversation and take it from there. For those that are worried, you can have an option so only recruiters can see this. So no, your employer isn't going to know that you're open to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really important for me. Like keeping this as detailed as possible really does help. I'm just going to fire over to the comments at the moment. We've got a good question from Razvan, who has got a giant grocery list of skills over your career. Your question is, is there any particular priority of the skills that you should add? Yeah, I agree. Not adding every single one if you've used them for 5 minutes, but certainly highlighting, key technologies that might be really sought after right now in the current climate, or any that you have got extensive experience with, whether that's 6 months plus, could be really beneficial to a future employer of yours. So yeah, I would say get as many on there as possible. You can also be endorsed by these as well by the rest of your network, so they really do add a lot of value to your profile. So yeah, get as many on there as you can, I'd say.
Just something to add there as well is when the list gets long, also think, what do you want to be doing now? If you've got skills for roles that are dated and stuff you don't want to do, then let's remove them and just focus on the ones that you do want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you actually have that experience, because if you put stuff on your LinkedIn page that you don't have experience with, you're just wasting your time and everybody else's time, because ultimately the role's probably not going to work out. But if you have got certain skills, or in your case as a front-end developer, maybe experience with certain frameworks or e-commerce platforms, then make sure the ones that you push on your LinkedIn page are the ones that you want to be working with in the future as well.
Yeah, really key point there. Yeah, I agree entirely. We've got another question here. How much experience does someone have to have with something for it to be classed as a skill? This is kind of really open to interpretation, I would say. But adding it as a skill is, it's going to highlight that you have, somewhat a lot of knowledge in that specific area. So, you're going to be then questioned on it. You might be highlighted or picked out of a group of people because of that specific skill. So I'd say be prepared to be able to talk about that openly with a recruiter or with a future hiring manager about that, and be comfortable in doing so as well. Okay, cool. Let's move on to point number 4, which is updating your summary. This for me, I don't know about you, James, or anybody else in the comments section, is crucial. It's your first impression, right? It's one of the first things that anyone will see on your profile. So make it count and try and be creative as well. Top tip for this: write in first person. Keep it first person. Don't be writing in third person or anything like that. And this really is just an overview of yourself, both professionally, but also personally as well. This is where you can really let your personality shine through. You can share details about yourself that don't form part of your professional experience, right? Because that comes later down in your actual profile, like we've just mentioned. So you can include things here like your interests, what you like to get up to in your spare time, what you might do at the weekends. This will help people connect with you on a personal level. And you know what? Who knows? You might actually have more in common with your future boss than you might think. Yeah, it just helps people connect with you on that personal level. You then become more of a human rather than just this professional figure. So yeah, keep your summary updated. Again, I think the motto of this live is update, update, update. Keep everything on there as up to date as possible. But I think another good thing that you might want to add to your summary is putting links to your portfolio. If you're front-end dev, you can put links to your GitHub or any portfolios that you might have created. You might have a blog, you might have a YouTube channel. The summary is a perfect place to put these links to further expand on not only your experience, but like I say, your personality too, that people really do want to know about.
Like for me, the summary is really important. It allows you to shine through as a person. LinkedIn is a social channel. Yes, we do use it as a primary method for sourcing for business and for candidates, but it is also a social platform. So it's really important that you're able to share your personality with it as well. As Jess said, often there can be a lot of similarities or things in common between yourself and your potential hirer, or even the recruiter might look for something and see something like a YouTube link, and then click on the link to look at it and then find some form of synergy between the two. I know there's a big uh, like a misconception that as recruiters we don't look at your page, we literally just spam mail everybody. And whilst I'm sure there are those people in the industry, I want to make it clear that it's not everybody, and there are many recruiters out there that do look to go above and beyond for their service and don't just keyword match or spam. We actually look at the profile, we look at the background, we try and understand as much as we can about personality and try and put two and two together. Okay. We've also got job titles. Now, job titles is an interesting one. And link. Oh, we got a question.
Michael.
Okay. Sorry, going back to skills. How important are endorsements for skills? It's a good question. Personally, I would say it depends on who they're endorsed by. Normally, you can see that. I know there was a bit of a trend where people would get endorsed for many skills and they would be pretty random. I think normally you can tell if the skill's legitimate or not by the amount of endorsements and who it's endorsed by. It's not a big thing for me personally, but I would definitely recommend trying to get some endorsements for that skill if you can do.
Yeah, definitely. I think when it comes to endorsements for me, you know, if you can get endorsed 10 to 20 times for that one specific skill set, you know, it really is going to enhance your profile in my opinion. And alongside just the endorsements, like getting the recommendations on LinkedIn, you know, these are looked at as well. So getting as many recommendations on your profile by, you know, maybe ex-colleagues that you've worked with, previous managers or line managers, or people that you're connected with who can vouch for, you know, specific areas of your experience or skill set, really will add a lot of value as well.
Awesome. We'll come back to some more questions at the end. Dan and Jay, I do like your question, and I will come back to that one in the next 2 or 3 minutes. If we can move on to job titles. Now, as I just mentioned, this is an interesting one. There are millions of job titles out there, and it seems like more and more created by the day. What I would say is LinkedIn does give you an option to use their job titles. And whilst you don't need to do this, I would recommend doing so. They have a huge variety and you can pick more than one. If you don't do it, then you're reliant on recruiters knowing that they can also use LinkedIn outside of LinkedIn standard function, and they can search for you. However, it does make it harder, and ultimately you're relying on that recruiter to know how to use LinkedIn as well as they can do. So my advice would be is to try and use the LinkedIn example job titles wherever possible. And if there's not a specific one, or it could be one of many, just click as many of them as are relevant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I agree with that one. And going back to what you mentioned earlier on in the conversation, James, is if it's specific job title, you are an SAP commerce developer, like put that skill set in the title as well, rather than just put in developer or engineer. Try and be as specific as you can with the job titles as well. Cool. We've got some really good questions coming through. So yeah, we'll go through the last point and then wrap through some of these questions. There's really good ones there. So yeah, top tip number 6 is have a profile picture. Plain and simple here, just have a photo. It doesn't need to be corporate and it doesn't need to be stiff. Whilst we, don't need to have a profile picture of when you were 17 in Zante, having one that's you, reflective of you and what you do. Keep it simple, keep it you. Seeing a real person in the photo will help with not only your own personal branding, but again, also makes you a real person that people can connect with. Goes back to making people being able to kind of connect with you on that personal level. I personally think it always helps when it comes to meeting people in person as well. Things like interviews or video calls, like you're easily recognizable, you become a familiar face. I can, as an example, count many a times where I've been very well connected with somebody, but not seen them in person and not seen their LinkedIn profile. So as a photo, so then when I've come to meet them, I've not actually known what they look like and not been able to introduce myself properly. So it kind of works in the same way of being able to connect with you. But yeah, just have a photo really. I know a lot of techies like to be more creative and have a graphic of themselves. Like that is great. It gives a reflection of you and what you love to do and kind of where you're at within your career as well. So yeah, bottom line, just have a photo.
Definitely, and there is no rule. You don't need a suit. You don't need to have this or that. Look however you are comfortable looking. Use it as a chance to let your personality shine through. And if you're comfortable in a suit and you wear a suit, great. If you're comfortable in a t-shirt and you want to wear a t-shirt to work, great. We all know that the workplace has changed substantially over the last 24 months. Don't feel the need to have to look a certain way. Be comfortable being you, because ultimately you are the person that's going to be being hired.
Yeah, for sure. And consider having a header as well, which complements your profile picture. Often the headers are left blank. You can get creative with this as well. So yeah, definitely try and have a header which complements your profile picture too.
Awesome. All right, should we go to some of the questions then? I want to go back to Dan and Jay. So a great point on the German at A1 level. Obviously, this is something that I get asked a reasonable amount, having helped to expand Simply Commerce across Germany over the last 18 months. My personal opinion is be honest about your experience, because if you're not, it will get found out very, very quickly. And we have learned that the hard way. I can tell you that. You don't need to pretend you know fluent German. And if you are needing to use any form of translation tool to write a cover sheet, then you probably shouldn't do it. However, you should just highlight the fact that you are at a certain level and take a minute just to try and explain what you're doing to advance. Everyone has to start somewhere. The problem that you might face is that a lot of people are at A1 level and they have no intentions to move to A2, to B, to C. If you can just put a bullet point on your CV or your LinkedIn page around what you are doing to move forward from A1 to A2 and further, then that will 100% get noticed. And whilst I can't promise it's going to be enough to get a job, employers will definitely look at it and they'll read it and they'll consider it.
Yeah, really good point there. I think that goes for anybody really. Even language or trying to upskill or trying to change what you're doing. Maybe you're moving from a hands-on role and you want to be more client facing or move into more strategic. I think highlighting what you're doing to get there as well will not go unnoticed. So yeah, top tip there with that is just put as much of what you're trying to do now if you're trying to make a shift in your career as well.
Perfect. Another question. Got is it Rorka? When making an industry change, how much of your previous industry experience should you include? Good question. I don't think there's any right or wrong answer to this one. I certainly would include your previous industry experience, particularly if there's a lot of it. Otherwise, whoever is reviewing your profile or speaking to you may believe that you're possibly a junior and you don't have any prior experience. Some ways in which you can do this so it doesn't take up too much space is just to put some short bullet points that highlight what you've done before or the industries that you've worked in, and maybe a couple of key achievements, and also a note as to why you're looking at changing industry. It would be useful. But again, there is no right or wrong answer. The one thing I would categorically say is don't have all of the experience there, because if you're writing a CV, it's going to get very, very, very long. And if you got it on LinkedIn, then again, there's only so much you can put on there. You want people to be drawn to the most relevant part of what you've done and what you want to be doing. What do you say, Jess?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I think what a lot of people don't know is you can actually create a CV from your LinkedIn. If you go to your profile and click more, you can actually build a CV from your LinkedIn. So your profile and LinkedIn right now is pretty much your CV. So why double your work by putting it into a PDF or anything like that when you can literally do that from your LinkedIn? If your LinkedIn is updated regularly and you continue to do that, you'll never have to do the same work twice. So yeah, maximize your LinkedIn and then make the most of that for your CV as well.
Awesome. A couple more questions. We've got a few more minutes, so if anyone else has got any questions that we haven't covered, feel free to chuck them in the box now. Wilson, for an experienced professional, what do you recommend the right number of pages your CV should be? Again, right, there's no right or wrong answer here, and you'll often hear 1 page or 2 page. Like for me, I don't think they should set a 2 page restriction, particularly as you progress in your career. How are you going to get all of your experience relevant onto 2 pages? What I would say is, personally, I think 4 is a good number. You can get a lot of detail into 4 pages, and I'm yet to see a case as to why a CV should be much longer. I have, funnily enough, the longest CV I've had was 21 pages, and honestly, it felt, well, I didn't actually read it, and I recommended that they reduce some of their work experience. You don't need to write an essay on what you did in 2002. It's just not that relevant. What would be more appropriate is the job title, the company you work for, and the key responsibility that you held. That's appropriate. All of the day-to-day tasks for the 9 months you work there isn't so important.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd say 3-4 pages really. Keep it concise. Yeah, if you're going back, to the 2000s, you can just line it or put as per previous experience, and you can talk about that in further detail. But your most relevant experience for the past 10 years is going to be what most hiring managers are really going to want to know about.
You've also got to think as well, how relevant is it? Technology is changing so fast right now. If you're, whatever you did in 2005 or even 2015 for that matter, technology changes fast, and do you need to put 10, 15, 20 bullet points as to what you did? Can you just take the 2 or 3 key ones and put it on there, showcase what you've done, and you can always add an extra note saying, look, for further details, please feel free to ask. Okay, and Josie, what would you say your CV should be the same level as details you put on your LinkedIn profile? How should they differ? Again, good question. Personally, I would say yes. I think you can use your LinkedIn page as your CV. Many people actually do that at the minute, and I do think more and more people will start to utilize that function. As Jess said, why make it separate? You could ultimately have a dressed down version of your CV, which could be your LinkedIn profile, and then a more formal version, depending on the type of roles that you are applying for. As I do appreciate that there will be certain industries that have prerequisites or they have certain demands to join them, particularly when you move up the ladder to very senior positions. But for the general person, I would say yes, I would use my LinkedIn page as my CV.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just to add on to that as well, if you're going for a specific position and you want to tailor your CV for that requirement, you can do that on your CV, but you can use what you've already created on LinkedIn, and you can just add and change, a few bits or pieces to be more specific to that job role maybe. But yeah, I would typically say try and keep them the same, and then you can just make adjustments where you feel necessary, really.
All right. Another question here from anonymous LinkedIn user. Share yourself. How to get no. It's one of the recruiters that doesn't let you know they look at your page. How do you get noticed if you're switching career roles, for example, shifting from technical to a non-technical role with existing technical experience? Anyway, let me just read that again. That was a bit of a tongue twister.
I think for this one, goes back to being noticed if you're switching career roles. If you're going from kind of technical, and I'm going to assume here, so correct me if I'm wrong, from a kind of development or engineering background, maybe, looking to go into a non-technical role that maybe is more client-facing or more strategic, I would highlight the elements of what you've done as a technical person that can still be translatable or of value to being in a non-technical role, because there will always be value added there. It's just about highlighting that. However, yeah, I think if you're wanting to be noticed, of course, your previous experience is worth putting on there for sure. But you can highlight maybe in your summary of the move you're wanting to make or where you're wanting to go down. That's open for people to know.
Certainly, I would definitely have a number of points in my summary which explained my reason for career change and where I see myself going moving forward. People do read these things, and if you do want to move into say a business focus role, some points you could note on your CV might be the fact that you maybe had some stakeholder management before, or you've been involved in gathering requirements and what have you, and you've had that interaction between the business and the technical teams. It might be that you've been involved in mentoring or training or any other form of assisting with maybe other junior members of staff that would form more of a managerial or leadership role. Yeah, like the key thing is just trying to what I'm trying to stress here is just put some information in as to what you think is the most relevant for what you've done, and a short couple of notes as to why you're looking for that change and why you believe you would be good and are ready for that change right now. Ultimately, a lot of people make the transition from technical to non-technical. It's very common, so it does happen regularly. So I don't think it's anything for you to worry about. You just got to try and explain why you're the right person for the job.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, totally. Cool. I've got one more bonus tip before we wrap things up here. Switch your emails on. It's crazy and actually amazing the number of people who don't have this switched on. And this could mean you're missing out on some amazing opportunities because you've not got that in-mail option open. So yeah, have that on if you're wanting to be headhunted. Maybe if you don't know you're wanting to be headhunted, still have it on because you'll be surprised at the amazing opportunities you might be missing out on if that's not on.
Definitely. There are a lot of people that have email switched off, and even if you're open to work, unfortunately, we can't message you. So do make sure it's switched on. But look, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for joining. It's been really cool. This is the first one that we've done. Hopefully you liked it, and yeah, hopefully you'll come back for the next one. Not sure what it'll be on yet, but hey, we'll keep you waiting. You'll be able to watch this back at any point. It will get shared to everyone that's tuned in today, and I believe those that couldn't make it. Just finally, before we go, for those that don't know, Simply Commerce also hosts the FOD, the Future of Digital Commerce, and that is where we interview leaders within the digital commerce tech space and talk to them about all things digital commerce here and now and what to expect in the future. You can find out more about that on our website. But thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for joining, guys. It's been great.